This is Kid Chaos for part 2 of this Blender tutorial series on a kid called Beast. So, let's begin. We're starting off in the same scene that we used in the first tutorial. If you have not seen the first tutorial, I'll link it in the description below. Please watch that first, as we covered the basics of how to get your Beast into the scene and basic changing of the materials and clothing. For this one, we're going to be covering lighting, adding new objects into the scene besides your Beast, and creating more of an environment. So let's begin. To start off, same as before, we're going to import our Beast. So I'll go to Import, GLB, and I have this one, 6068, which I'm going to import here. There he is. We can click on the AKCB logo, press X, delete, OK, enter, yes. All right, so last time we talked about clothing and textures. Today we're talking about more lighting in the scene itself. So if we zoom out of our scene, we have our seamless, and then we have all the objects and everything. We have several different lights already baked into the scene. We actually have, if you see this lighting bin, we have 6 what are called point lights. Actually, sorry, 3 point lights and 3 spotlights. Now there are different types of lights. There's point, there's spot, what else is there? There's area and sun. All of these do different things, all provide different forms of illumination. In this context, we're mostly going to be talking about point and spot. So point light, what it is if I were to press Shift A, bring this up, and then scroll down to a light, I could create a point light just by clicking there. And it's all the way over here. I'm going to drag it forward over here. A point light is basically a light source in which it's emanating in all areas. It's 360, top, bottom, side to side. So in terms of how it's going to light up the scene, let's start with how to properly view this setting. So if you go to the top right hand corner, you'll see we have a few different viewport shading options. On the far left, where it's looking like this wire globe, if you click on it, you see basically your 3D scene as wireframe, meaning it's going to cause the least amount of lag during your workflow, also the least amount of detail. Secondly, we have this one, the second option, which is sort of like the clay version, where once again you won't see quite so much colors, but you'll begin to start to see, the basic shapes of everything in the scene. We go a step further. This one gives you the most, a little bit more detail in terms of how your clothes will look, textures, materials, everything in general. You can see obviously there's a difference in lighting between clay and material preview. Keep in mind though that the lighting in material preview is not reflective of the actual lights that you have in your scene. It's just giving a blanket sort of default lighting just so you can kind of see what you're doing, but it's not reflective of what's actually in the scene. To see what is, we'd go to our last step, which is the rendered view. Now for this, it's basically Blender's rendering the entire scene in real time in the viewport, as opposed to if we were to go to render and then render image and then save it and everything. In this context, when I move my camera or I move my mouse around, it's going to pixelate and then it's going to re-render. Every time I move, it's going to re-render, it's recalibrating, recalculating. So to see what actually your lighting is doing in the scene, if I go to, let's say, this 0.002 light and I zoom in quite a bit closer. Okay, so here's how it looks at the moment. We have a little bit of shadow on the right side of the face. If I remove or I disable the light in the viewport, meaning I'm not deleting it and I'm not hiding it out of the final render, but just in this viewport area, if I want to hide it and see how it changes, I do that. And it's very subtle, but it got a little darker on the side of the face. Okay, what about this 0.004, which is on top? What happens if I remove it here? How's it gonna look? Okay, so that's one on top. I don't know if you noticed, but the entire background behind the Beast got a lot darker. So this light, if I turn it back on, is definitely illuminating mostly the background itself, the seamless, as opposed to the Beast. I'll take it off. Then we have one more point light, which is to the top and right. If I remove that one by pressing this computer icon. Okay, so that one was lighting the foreground. It was lighting the Beast's face for the most part. Cool, so now it's a lot darker. Well, let's see. What if I didn't like any of these lights and I wanted to add my own? Well, to do that, let's go Shift A, And then from here we have our options in terms of what we want to add to the scene. We could add shapes, we could add text, we could add all different sorts of things. In this case, we're going to scroll down and go to light. I'm going to click point. So point light was just created. Well, where is it? Okay, it's all the way over there. No problem. Let's click on this red arrow and drag it to the left. And we're gradually bringing it closer to our beast. I don't know if you can tell, but just for a second, if I bring it a little closer, something's going on the beast. It's getting a little brighter in certain areas. Let's try. Okay, what if this light is pretty weak, actually? How do I want to increase its power? Well, on the bottom right, you have all these options. Look for this little green light bulb icon. From here, you can actually change the light. So here you have color and power. Let's change the power from 10 watts to 100 and see what happens. Okay, it got a little bit brighter. So just take a moment to look. So 10 watts, darker, 100, a bit brighter. Let's do 1,000. Okay, that's really overexposed. So that's just right in his face. Probably don't need it that strong. Let's do, let's say 250. It's okay. Yeah, depends on what you want. And if you have a beast that, say, has some certain characteristics, like it's got all blue clothing and you want, potentially blue lighting, click on the color. You have a color wheel, and click and drag, and you can move around. And look, it's the beast is still rendering, but I left it on a purple, so this purple light is now illuminating the beast. Let's say I want to make it bright red. Okay, I can do that. And to see how this would look in, say, a final render, let's go to our camera. And that's kind of what it would look like. And this cool thing is you can have your camera selected. Once again, you just click on the toggle the camera view right here. And then everything I do in real time can adjust and show up on the viewport here. So I moved it to blue. Still too weak in terms of power. Let's move it up to 500. Not bad. And then maybe let's add those point lights back in right here by clicking those computer icons. Okay, we're back to our kind of our original lighting, but now we have this new blue lighting showing up. And obviously you can do what you want with this. You could bring it right to his face. You could make it off in the distance a little bit. It's totally up to you in terms of what kind of mood you want to set with lighting. Lighting is key to 3D for sure. So let's delete that blue light. So those are the 3 point lights. We have some spotlights here. 1, 2, 3. I would say, play around with some point lights for now, and maybe in the next one we'll cover more all 4 types of lighting, but for now just stick with point lights and just get a feel for it. Change the color, change the power, move it around, see what it does to, the contrast of shadows between, this side of the face and this, depending on what mood you want to go in. Okay. One important thing I forgot to mention before even lighting was, how to move things around. So first up, for kind of setting up the scene, you're moving your camera around. I'm going to go back to material preview. You're moving around. Let's say I want to move something. I don't know what it could be. It could just be this point light. We have these list of options here to the left. We have select, and then we have here move, which hotkey is G. We have 3 arrows, red, green, and blue. Red is going to move something left and right on the x-axis. Green is going to move something back and forward on the y-axis. And Z is going to move things up and down on the blue is going to move things up and down on the z-axis. So if I wanted to take my light, this point light, and make it a lot stronger, let's say 300, and I put it right in front of his face. Okay, the front of his face is totally illuminated. I don't want that. I want it behind him to kind of create a halo effect. So, go back to material preview. Let me move it on the green axis. Sorry. On the green, on the y-axis, I'm going to move it back until it's behind him. And shift your perspective to see if it's correct in terms of what you want to do. That looks right. Looks like it's right behind him. So now, If I go back to the render preview, let's see how that looks. Not a tremendous difference. But what if I've changed the color? Back to red. Okay, so that's cool. What it's doing is it's illuminating only the back of him with that red aura, which is kind of cool actually. You might want that where you have certain lighting with different colors on the back and normal lighting on the front. Makes a nice kind of halo effect. And let me make it a little bit more powerful, let's say 600. And then toggle my camera preview. That's cool. It's like kind of hitting his back and the ground below him. All right, cool. Anyway, that's an instance in moving an object, and it corresponds with obviously what we're talking about in terms of lighting. So yeah, good experiment. Create some lights. Remember, Shift A, create a light, change the color, change the power. Remember to go to this green light bulb and start to play around with it. Create 2, 3, 4 lights and set up a scene and play around with balancing them. Next, let's talk about, okay, we've used this seamless before. What if we want something more interesting, like an apartment? Let's look at a street or something. Let's give this scene some character. Well, where do we get these things? Not all of us are 3D whizzes who can model entire scenes from scratch. Well, you don't really have to. There is a wealth of resources for 3D. I'm going to talk about 2 main resources. The first one being Turbosquid.com, and the other one being CGTrader.com. For Turbosquid, you'd hop onto the site, and let's say I want to look up like some kind of a scene, like an apartment. Enter, and we're gonna get a lot of options. We're gonna get whole cities. We're gonna get whole cityscapes. This famous like alley in Hong Kong, super famous, super photogenic. To find something that's within your price budget, keep in mind some of these objects are free, some you do have to pay for. If you want only free options, go over here to price, click free. It's gonna be pretty limited, I'm warning you, but not terrible. Go to, yeah, so free, and so this one is free, this house, this building is free. Keep in mind though, some of these, there are different 3D programs. There's Blender, there's Cinema 4D, there's Autodesk Maya. So we want things in Blender, right? Because that's what we're kind of focusing on. So go to the right, Formats, and click Blend, .blend Blender. So these are going to show you only Blender files, which is probably going to be the easiest thing to work with our beasts. It is possible to download 3D objects in different formats and then convert them into Blender, but it's a bit more of a process. So yeah, so here's like all the buildings we could download and incorporate into our scene for free, for the most part, in Blender. The other resource you might have is CGTrader. This is the one I use a little bit more often. In this context, it's the same thing. You look up, let's say, a chair. Same thing, go to Format, scroll down to Blender, choose your price point. You can get this one for $4, and just, it's an object that you can add to your scene, and you can get little previews into what it's going to look like. All right, so for CGTrader, I have this cyberpunk environment, which I bought for 20 bucks. Here's how it looks. So right away, see a lot of cool lighting, definitely very moody. This could work for a lot of different cases. And yep, you guessed it, we are going to put our beast in this scene. So, let's begin. Go back. I'm going to download it. When you download some of these 3D objects, it's going to give you a few different formats within that overarching folder. You can have your blend file, there's an FBX file, object, RAR, MTL. So this is, the textures by themselves is this textures.rar. RAR means it just needs to be expanded. MTL is short for materials. Object is the actual like clay object itself, just the object without any texture or color or whatever. So it's kind of split. The owner has, given us a full Blender file with all of these 3 already included in that Blender file, but we also have everything separated in case we wanted it. In this case, all we need to do for this particular scene is just download the Blender file. All right, let's open it up. Do we need to save? Not really. All right, and here right off the bat, we have the entire scene. We have it in our solid clay viewport rendering. So it's just showing us the actual object itself. We can look at it in wireframe context, so we see a little bit more detail how many kind of objects there are. Let's go back. Let's look at it with some lighting. Give it a second to load. Once again, I'm just going through these 4 different viewport shading options. So slowly some lights are starting to emerge. All right, so we have quite a lot going on here. So it's showing us, some of the lighting that's emanating. It's giving us all the texture into the walls, the windows, the graffiti, everything. And if we want to see how this would look fully rendered, click that final viewport shading. Very dark and moody, very cool. All right, I'm curious to see how our beast is going to look in this, so let's hop to it. Just like with the seamless scene with just the white background, let's go to File, Import, GLB, bring it in, import. All right, where's our beast? Oh my goodness, look at him right here. He's a monster. Well, just for now. Let's expand this, grab our move tool. And same thing, remember, backwards or forwards. Green on the y-axis, let's bring him forward. He's floating in midair, so let's grab the blue arrow, the z-axis, bring him down. Let's move him to the left a little bit. Click and drag on the red arrow. All right, way too big. So let's scale him down. So we use the move tool to get him to this position. To scale him down, it's right here, still on the left side. Click scale. And then we have an outer circle and an inner circle. Make it simple. Just click between the inner circle and the outer circle. Click and hold, and then drag slowly to the right. And if you drag to the right or to the left, it'll change the scale depending on your perspective. Now I'm dragging him to the left a little bit. Okay, he's a little smaller. He's still levitating, so let's go back to the move tool. Bring him down. Boom. And I'm just changing my perspective to make sure that his feet are not clipping through the ground, nor are they still floating. So bring it a little closer, 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 closer. There. All right, and I think that's, he's still a little too big actually. So once again, go back to scale. This is what 3D is. It's just, changing the scale, the perspective, and the textures and everything back and forth until it's right. Still just a little too big. One more time. Clicking and dragging to the left, and I think there's fine. Okay, zoom in. All right. And I hope I mentioned this before. I'm on a MacBook. I'm just using a trackpad, so I'm just using 2 fingers to move around and to kind of keep the same perspective but move left and right. I'm just holding onto shift and then moving 2 fingers left and right. So you scroll, use 2 fingers, move around, then hold shift, move, use 2 fingers, move around, hold shift, move, just to navigate your way through the scene. Okay, let's look. I think there's a default camera in this collection, in this environment. So if we just click on our toggle camera, okay, it's pointing all the way up there. A nice shot, I suppose. Let's create our own camera. We don't need that one. Let's make a new one. So, just dragging this down a little. Okay, so same thing, Shift A. We use this to get to our point light, but if we to go down, now we can add a camera. Let's add a camera. Where is it? It's right over here, because we have our 3 arrows. Let's bring it down, to the left, to the right, back, 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 just till we get it to where we want it to be. Let's see how it looks. Click on the camera toggle view. Not bad, so we have a nice 1920 by 1080 default camera. I think I want to go in closer, and I want to go to the left a little bit more. So let's exit out, zoom out, and let's bring this a little closer that way, a little closer, and pull it to the left. Now let's see how it looks. Better. I think I just want to bring it down a little bit. So I'm just going to take this, drag down. Cool. And just for the heck of it. So we talked about two tools, the move tool and the scale tool. Let's talk about one more, the rotate. So if I click rotate, I can now rotate my camera to the left. I can rotate it to the right by same thing, clicking and dragging to left or right. I can also do it up and down on the red x-axis. And I can do it here on this axis as well. I think in this case, for now, all you really need to think about is, position the camera where you want it, and then let's say play around with this blue arc left or right. So let's say I want to bring it that direction, go back to the move tool, bring it a little bit to the left. Let's see how that looks. That's cool. This is kind of boring, so maybe I had it better. Kind of facing more towards the graffiti. I think it looks cooler. So go back to the rotate here, and then move it to the right. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, not bad. Let's go to render image, and see what this looks like. Cool. It's pretty basic. I mean, it's a cool scene. Obviously, there's a lot more we can do in terms of lighting and adding different objects, but the main purpose of this tutorial is just to get you an idea of placing your beast in the scene and starting to move things around and changing it to your desire, especially in terms of the camera perspective. But you can do that same thing we talked about in terms of Shift A, adding a light, and then adding multiple and then making the scene yours. Also, if we wanted to just utilize as much of this scene as possible, we could grab all the components of our beast and then move everything closer to, I don't know, right here underneath this light. And then maybe we could rotate him a little bit this way, move him back. I'm picking this area just because it's got all this nice signage and everything. So let's move our camera over here actually. I'm gonna rotate, click and drag. Let's just see what this looks like. Okay, interesting. Exit out, I'm gonna rotate a little closer. There. Oh, my camera got a little bit skewed. That was my bad. Hold on. Just trying to make it level. Okay. One more time. Right around here. Let's see. Okay. Cool. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I really want to get these signs in there. Okay. One more time. Let's take this a little bit closer. This way. And then rotate one last time. Right here. This should look better. Yeah. His feet are clipped off a little bit, so one more time. Move. This way. And that way. Okay. Cool. Let's render it. Render image. Alright, nice. Cool. Well guys, that's it. That's tutorial number 2. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. So once again, we covered bringing the beast into the scene. We started to talk about lighting. We talked about how to move objects, how to scale them, and how to rotate them. With just moving, scaling, and rotating objects, it's going to help you tremendously in terms of making the scene yours. We talked about also like resources like Turbosquid and CGTrader 3D libraries in which you can either download for free or purchase certain objects and begin to create your scene from scratch. And it's really, don't feel bad about utilizing a lot of resources from these libraries. All 3D artists in general will pull from different resources, because to do everything 100% from scratch, meaning modeling the house, modeling every component, is crazy hard. And don't beat yourself up about utilizing every resource at your fingertips. We all do it, especially the professionals. Okay. Great. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please drop them in the comments. I will be more than happy to answer. You can shoot me a DM on Twitter, and let me know what you'd like to see for the third tutorial. I appreciate you. Thank you all, and all the best. Bye-bye.